Right. We've now got our much anticipated surrogate panel now, which we're very lucky to have Andrea from West Coast Surrogacy going to moderate it for us. Andrea is actually case manager for West Coast and has been a surrogate herself a few times for some gay parented families. So welcome, Andrea. I'm going to get you to come and introduce the surrogates on the panel. That'd be great.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Janae, for asking me. Where did Janae go? Oh, hi. Last minute to do this, so thank you so much. I'm excited to be here. So these are our surrogate angels that we have for you today to hear their experiences on what's led them to surrogacy, and you get to hear firsthand their experience in surrogacy. So we have Danielle Vi.
Yes.
Okay. Danielle Vi, Carrie Bell, Mandy Storr, and Shelley Marsh, and Jessica Bussman as our surrogates today. Okay, so why don't we talk about what brought you guys to surrogacy, Carrie?
I didn't really have like that one aha moment where I decided that this is where I'm gonna go. I was on Facebook and an ad popped up and I kind of thought that might be something that I could look into. I had super easy pregnancies. My labors were 3 hours. My longest was 5 hours. So I had really fast ones. They were super easy. And I talked to my husband and I'm like, well, what do you think about something like this? And he was like, well, let's research a little more. We can talk about it a little more. And once we started researching and we started to really see the stories of families that struggled, we knew it was definitely for us. I'm a teen parent, so pregnancy came extremely easy for me. So we knew it was something we definitely wanted to do.
Awesome. And Mandy, what made you choose your agency?
Oh gosh. Well, first of all, the first choice is, do I want an agency, not which agency. And for my family and I, it was an easy yes, we want an agency. I didn't want to think about the legal or the financial. I just wanted to be pregnant again. And we were done at 2. So we knew we wanted an agency, and we started doing some research, and we just kept coming back to the same one. And we knew we wanted, which was Growing Generations. I've carried with them once and now again twice, and I also do some work for them, so I just love them to death. And for me, it was a matter of finding somebody that was well established with a history, and not only an agency history, but an established history with a legal firm, because this was new. You know, this industry has evolved so much in 5 years. So when we got started, we said we want somebody who has our back financially, who has our back legally, who has our back emotionally. I don't want to deal with any of that. So we went to one that was established and had a psychologist who'd been doing this for 20 years, and a legal firm that was a big one, and just a place where we felt we had the least amount to worry about. And for us, that was Growing Generations.
Mm-hmm. Do we have any independent surrogates on the board? Yeah. Do you want to talk about what made you decide to go independent?
Sure, yeah. So I have been a surrogate 3 times. My first journey, can everybody hear me, or you want me to? Okay. Is that better? Okay. I've been a surrogate 3 times. My first journey, much like Mandy, I did choose to go with an agency, just because, like Growing Generation says, you don't know what you don't know. And there's obviously a lot involved. So the first time I went through an agency, and that was a great journey. I delivered identical twin boys after a single embryo transfer surprise. That will be 5 in December. So that was a great journey. When it came time to decide whether I wanted to do it again, it was not that my agency wasn't great. They were, and we still to this day maintain a relationship with our coordinator from the agency. But I'm a very outspoken person, very comfortable with advocating for myself. So I didn't necessarily feel that I needed an agency to hold my hand after that initial journey. So for my second and third journeys, I did match independently. And we worked with a lot of the same professionals, the same reproductive endocrinologists, the same law firm. So a lot of the players that we really needed on our support team stayed the same, and it was great to already have those relationships with them.
That's great. And Shelley, did you say you also chose independent? Oh, I'm sorry, Jessica.
Mine was kind of a unique situation. So I also started with an agency. That's how I met my intended parents. So I started with an agency. That's how I met my intended parents. And they had 21 embryos. 2 years into the process, multiple reasons things didn't happen the way that they should have. We had some losses. We had one that didn't take. But we'd built such a relationship that we were very close. And they exhausted all their embryos. And the mom actually had been diagnosed with cancer, and I knew that from the get-go. So I knew that time maybe wasn't always on our side. So when they decided they still wanted to pursue being parents, I volunteered to change from gestational to traditional. So, and in this world, this isn't, that you won't usually find an agency that will work with you, and doctors as well. And there's for good reason. Like it's a gray area. Like you have to have so much trust on both sides in the process, and I believed we had that, and I just always felt that it was the right thing to do, and I did it, and we had a baby girl last year in July, and so it worked out. But that's why we were kind of forced to go independent, which, because we'd been through the process for 2 years, we felt very comfortable doing. We just had to do everything on our own. And then I'm back with the same agency that I was before, because I had a great relationship with them as well, and now I have new intended parents and 20 weeks in, so I've done both. Both can be great experiences as long as you know what you're doing, but agencies are really great if you don't know what you're doing in the beginning, because they tell you everything. So
Thank you. And Shelley, what's important to you in matching with intended parents?
Well, mine was a little different because I only wanted to work with a gay couple. Just because I always told myself if I was going to help somebody, it would be somebody who had every odd stacked against them. And while I think the husband and wife couples are adorable, there's lots of people who help them. So I just went a different route. And with matching with my couples, I first wanted international. So I kind of narrowed it down quite a bit for them. And it just had to have the right connection. And once you read the profile and once you see it, I always compare it to online dating. So like I cheated on my husband a little bit while reading all these guys' profiles. But you just have to feel the connection. And once you do, it works.
Yeah. Carrie, what do you look for when you're matching with intended parents?
When I matched with my first intended parents, it was like an immediate connection. I just knew. I got the butterflies. I was really excited. Their story sort of reminded me of the story, between my husband and I, their relationship. And so I was really excited. My second couple, I didn't really get the butterflies, which is something I have to say, go with your gut. Just trust your gut. And my couple that I actually met the couple that I matched with now last year at the last conference. And I didn't meet them with the intention to be their surrogate, but I loved them, and it just happened to fall into place. And I feel like they are like everything that I've kind of been looking for in a couple, and they felt the same way about me. And so we just kind of came together, and they were like, will you be our surrogate? And I was actually going to do a sibling journey for my first couple, and so I told them no, and they decided they were going to wait for me, whether that was 2 years, 3 years, whatever. And so it's just the feeling, you get the feeling. I don't know how to describe it otherwise. You just know it's right.
I agree. Mandy, how is the relationship like with your intended parents?
This is one of my favorite things to talk about because it must be so frustrating to a room full of intended parents to have 5 unicorns sit up here and say, it's just a feeling. And you're like, how do I give you that feeling, right? So first of all, that's step one. It's open and it's honest. do not try to sugarcoat who you are when you're making your profile for your surrogate, because we can tell. And I like to tell people that for every surrogate you're dreaming up, there's a surrogate out there dreaming about you. You just have to find each other. So be true to yourself. That's your first step. And then once you're matched, right, you can go in and you can have the butterflies and you're like, this is great. Do you marry everybody you go on a first date with? You have to stay true to your feelings and remember that the end goal is to have a family, right? So I like to tell people that surrogacy relationships are kind of on a bell curve, right? So over here we have Jerry Springer. We've all heard the stories, and we're all in this room to make sure we're not over there. And over here we have, I'm a 2-time surrogate. I'm 20 weeks with twins right now. Over here we have what I got with my first couple, which they are my best friends. She is 2.5 years old and we talk almost every day. We vacation together as families. They are Uncle Mike and Uncle Traff to my children. That's as rare as Jerry Springer. For the most part, the relationship you're going to build falls right in this nice little middle area, which is where I'm at with these parents, which is great. So you don't have to have baby showers, although I think it's great. It doesn't work out that way. And the best way to build this relationship that you're going to walk away from this experience and you're going to smile ear to ear like Carrie's doing and like I'm doing and like all these ladies are doing, is to go into it organically and understand you don't marry everyone you go on a first date with. Sometimes you're like, we're going to be best friends forever, and you wind up cool acquaintances. And sometimes the magic happens, right? And the only way you're going to get there is if you're honest with yourself and if they're honest with you, and you just kind of let it grow organically. But the magic can happen. We're proof.
Yeah. Shelly, how did your children react to you wanting to become a surrogate?
They were so young the first time. I signed with CSP in 2009. So my oldest was 3 and my little one was not even, or actually she wasn't even born yet, sorry. And so I waited until I had my second, so my family was complete. So my kids don't know a difference. The only difference is my youngest doesn't know me bringing home a baby for us to keep, and my oldest does. But now they see pregnant people and they're like, oh, who are you giving your baby to? Or when I had my last surrogate, my youngest was in kindergarten last summer when I had my last surrogate baby. And she came to school and said, oh, my mommy's at the hospital, she just had a baby. But don't worry, we're not keeping it. And so when I got out of the hospital, I went to go pick her up for the first time after, the teacher was like, maybe we should talk. So for me, it's for my kids, it's normal. To them, like my oldest she's in 3rd grade, she just wrote a paper about what she wants to be when she grows up, and she said, I want to give people babies like my mommy does. Oh. So, I mean, if you're honest with, like she says, be honest with the couple, you have to be honest with everybody. Yeah. Like jobs, husbands, children, friends, you just have to be honest across the board, because my kids think that that's what everybody does.
That's wonderful. My daughter was 3 when I started my first surrogacy journey, and just recently I asked her what she wanted to do when she grows up, and she wants to own her own surrogacy agency, and then she asked if I can work for her. I thought that was cute. Here, your kids are a little bit older.
I know, older.
Tell us a little bit about how they reacted to you wanting to become a surrogate.
They are now 17, 13, and then my twins are 10. My first surrogate baby was born in 2012. They were twins also. We sat them down before we made the decision to actually move on. So we sat them down, we told them, kind of what our plan was, what we would like to do, and then we let them talk about whether they were comfortable with it. We did get a few questions, who's going to be the mom, who's going to be the dad, where will the babies live, stuff like that. But then once we explained, they were like, okay, whatever. And after that, it was, this is my mom, she's having a baby, and they would say their names. And so that's how it always was. The babies I would carry, my mom is pregnant, she's having a baby for so-and-so. It was a whole sentence always. They were always fine. I really liked that they got to meet the couples and interact with them. And I made sure that all my children came to the hospital when I had both sets of twins, just so that they could see the babies and see what our whole family, because it's not just me. It's my entire family. Every one of us sacrifices something, whether it's I can't go to a game, or I'm tired and I just want to lay on the sofa. I mean, there's something. Somebody sacrifices in some way. So to me, it's a big family thing. It's not just me. My husband is involved, my kids are involved, my parents live next door, they're completely involved. So my kids were fine with it. They were great with it. They still love them. We still show pictures to them. They still talk to them when we Skype together. They love it.
That's great. Danielle, what about your extended family? How did they react when you told them you wanted to be a surrogate?
So my mom had actually wanted to be a surrogate herself, and she wasn't able to because she ended up with a hysterectomy. So when I told her, she wasn't surprised at all. And our first journey was, like Mandy explained, it's that side of the curve where we are forever family. So my first journey was for a gay couple from Italy, and they are beyond amazing. And even though the twins are going to be 5, we are forever family. I've been to Italy twice to visit them, and they've come here to visit. We see each other annually as our goal. And my mom and my grandma went to Italy with me the first time that I went, because they are Sero grandma and Sero Gigi, great grandma. And you know, we had always dinners together when the guys were visiting, when I was carrying the twins, and the twins know my entire family. So it's really, really great, like Carrie said, because it's not just us that sacrifice. You know, you can't always do things with your kids, and my oldest daughter didn't want any siblings, so she was good with surrogacy. Like, she already had one sister, and when I told her that we were carrying twins and that they were going to go with Esteban and Michele, and she said good, because we don't need any more babies in this house. But it's great for them to still get to have that relationship with them. And she's 9 now, so she was only 4 at the time, and she sees pictures of the twins and says, "Mom, those can't be our babies, they're too big." And they're learning Italian so they can communicate with the twins, and it's really a family affair. And it is rare, but good Lord, is it amazing when it happens like that. So to the intended parents that allow your surrogates and their families to have those relationships with you and with your children, thank you. Because really, like, there are not words to describe what that means to us. People say that we're amazing and we're angels, but I can't tell you in words what my relationship with that family means to me.
It's pretty special. Jessica, did you receive any negative action or reactions to you being a surrogate at all? And if so, how did you react to that?
For the most part, so I'd say like 98%, friends and family, 100% supportive, lots of questions, of course, but very there for me. There was probably just one family member who, when they found out that I took this on, knowing full well that the mom was diagnosed with cancer, they were kind of angry with me that, like, how could I do that to this child? And my answer to them just was, we all have a clock that's ticking. No one usually knows when it's going to be the end, and I didn't think that it was fair that I made that call for, like, just because you're diagnosed with cancer or a disease doesn't necessarily mean it is going to be the end all, but we were prepared if something did happen, of course, mentally and legally, but that's just how I handle it. Like, it didn't change or sway anything that I did, but it was just interesting to see that perspective, because usually you just don't hear that, but most people are just very supportive and happy and curious. So yeah.
Shelley, how are your surrogate pregnancies different than your own?
They weren't mine. I mean, there was a light at the end of the tunnel, I guess. And for me, it was a long journey. My first journey, it was 9 months from the day we were matched to our first transfer. We lost 3 egg donors. It was just a long time. So by the time I was actually pregnant, I think it was the most excited I've ever been to be pregnant. Since it was for a same-sex couple, one dad fertilized each egg and we transferred both, and it was a waiting game. So once we knew it was twins, I think I kind of took that and ran with it, because nothing could ruin it at that point. So I mean, it was hard. I tell people all the time, like, don't do twins. I try. CSP will tell you, I tell everybody, like, don't push twins. It's a lot of work, and it's not so much work for me, it's work for my family. Like, I couldn't take the kids to soccer, and I had a doctor's appointment every week. I was seeing specialists. Like, I saw in black and white with the amount of ultrasounds I had. Like, every day looked like black and white. So it's just, it was exciting because it was such a story behind it all, but it's also a lot of work. So it's something that people need to be aware of. But other than that, it was great. Like, my twins were born at 37 weeks. They went home on day 3. They're perfect in every way. They just turned 3 2 weeks ago. So it was perfect. And then the second time, going to a singleton after twins, I think it was like a walk in the park. Like, I could have done it blindfolded backwards, standing on my head. So I think a lot of it is mindset. Like, if you go in knowing that what you're doing is for the good of somebody else, you can kind of get over anything after that.
And Mandy, you're currently pregnant with twins. How is that going for you?
Oh, sorry.
She's not lying. To echo what a lot of these gals have said about the family involvement, it is harder with twins, and we've had a saying in our family, and we say it a lot right now, which is, we are not a family with a surrogate in it. We are a surrogate family. Everyone has a role to play. And they've played a bigger role this time. I am bigger this time. That said, would I do twins again? She did. She did it twice. I don't know. Ask me when they're out, because we all get pregnancy amnesia, and that's why we've all done this so many times.
I would like to chime in with the be careful with 2 embryos, because living proof, 2% chance of an embryo splitting, it does happen. So I'm a strong 1 embryo kind of gal, because you give me 1 embryo and I give you 2 babies. So be careful. Twins are a lot of work.
That said, there is good that comes with it too. There's struggle, certainly. I'm tired all of the time, and this is my 4th pregnancy. And there are things happening to my body that have never happened before. And it's because there's 2. But like you said, at the end of the day, I know that I'm giving these intended parents each have a biological child coming, not 1 genetic contributor. They each have a child coming. And that is amazing to me. And to be able to do that in one shot for them, surrogates by nature, as Kim said earlier, we are altruistic, we are giving, and this is like a double present. It's a present with an extra big bow. So it's kind of worth it, and there is the light at the end of the tunnel. I have a very good surrogate friend who is 28 weeks pregnant right now, and just about every day she sends me a message with the maximum number of days to her induction. Not that she's miserable. She's very excited, but she's getting in that golden window, and you see the light at the end of the tunnel, and we are more than happy to be like, take 2.
Take 3.
Have any of you ever had the desire to keep your surrogate baby?
No. If we wanted babies, there's much easier ways to do it for us.
Yeah, that question always gets me, like, oh, but aren't you going to be sad giving the baby away? And I'm like, am I going to be sad when you're up every 2 hours and I can finally sleep on my stomach again and sleep all night? No, I'm not going to be sad. Like,
Well, I think that's the silliest question too, is are you going to be sad when you have to give the baby up? But it's not ours to give up. You're kind of just giving it back. It's like babysitting, like extreme babysitting.
Yeah. Janae coined that, right? Like, yeah, it's totally extreme babysitting. We love your babies, and we will take absolutely the best care of them, just like we did with our own children. But please come get them when they're ready to go home with you.
I opted for a C-section the 4th time just to make sure they were there on time.
And in my situation, going traditional, that was probably the biggest question that I got, was that, people wanted to know when she was born, was I going to feel that attachment and change my mind? Which, that's what the lawyers will talk, when they're working with IPs and or me, they worry about that. And my mindset from the get-go, I just knew what I was doing, and I always felt that it was their baby. And I get to visit her. We have a wonderful relationship. They're in LA too, so I got to see them yesterday. My kids are very involved. They know that they're genetically connected. I've always been open and honest with them. But it's like I get to visit the super cute baby that sometimes like same eyes, you know, and but I always know like that she's his. But just as a precaution, I did schedule a C-section when I had her, because I just wanted to make sure that at the very end, all that hormonal stuff that can go on that you have zero control over, that I had less of that going on by doing a C-section. So I just did that, and it was just a really good process, and I never think of her as mine, but just a gift I was able to give, and I get to visit and see on occasion. So
That's great. And how did each of you feel after the delivery and saying goodbye to the baby and the parents when you're leaving the hospital?
I think I coined the phrase ugly cry.
Oh yeah.
It's not that you're sad. You're not sad. You just had a baby. I mean, you're gonna be a little crazy, but it's. My husband calls surrogacy my heroin. So like they say, heroin users, they always chase that initial high. So my twins were my high. So it's something I'll always be chasing. But they're just my family now. So it was, yeah, I cried a lot. But it's not because I was sad. It's because it's like, holy, I just did it. So.
It's like the culmination of everything. Like, oh, the 150 times that my husband had to stick an 1.5-inch long needle in my tush was all for this moment, seeing you with your babies. And we would do it all over again. Clearly, most of us have, because that end moment is so worth it. So please, let us see you with your babies. Let our kids see you with your babies, because that's the big moment. Like, can you imagine running a 5K and something, you just like stop at the end, like, you know, there's the finish line 10 feet in front of you, but no, I'm not gonna go there. Like, that's the finish line. We want to see you with your babies, and that makes every single bit, every throw up, every shot, every pound that we gained, and every hot wing that we had to eat, it's all worth it, like, at that end moment.
I want to tell the intended parents here not to be afraid of those tears, because I feel like when you see us crying, because it's hard to hide. I have a friend who told me cry in the shower because no one comes in there. My husband came in a few times. He's like, "Are you okay?" You're gonna see the crying, but it's not because we're sad. And I feel like a lot the natural reaction of an intended parent is to be like, "Oh God, we're gonna give you space. I don't want to hurt you. You've done this great thing for me." We are not grieving losing the baby. We are having an emotional letdown, which is normal with birth, and we're scared to death we're going to lose you. Like Kim said earlier, when that baby's born, I'm like, yeah, sure, go do what you need. I'm staring at you, because for the last year or more, we've spent building this incredible relationship with you. So it's not that we're like, oh no, I'll never see the baby again, although it'd be great to see this child and to stay a part of your life. We're worried and sad and emotional about losing this great thing that you and I have built together. So if you see us crying, give us a hug.
Maybe some chocolate.
But please don't run away. I mean, you know, that's your right. If you want to run away, we all enter into this knowing that that's a potential, and that's your right. But it's not, very likely not what you think it is.
I'm going to just kind of go off what she said. So for my very first journey, you spend your whole, let's say, a year by the time everything's said and done, and that's a short time. You spend a whole year intertwining your family with this other family. And yes, you know, you're talking to them every couple days or once a week. You're doing updates, you know, they're updating you. And then you come right to the end, and all of a sudden it just stops. Like, everything is done. They go home with their babies. You're back to your normal life. And it's not like you just jump into your normal life. You kind of have to flow back into the routine of all the mom stuff you do and all the wife stuff you do. And at the same time, you have, you know, my couples who have these 2 brand new babies, and they're in the mindset of taking care of these babies. And so for me, it was like 3-4 weeks before I had really even heard anything from my intended parents. That was really difficult for me. It wasn't that I needed to hear about the babies or see the babies, but it was, my life was wrapped up with these 2 people for the last year, not the babies, these two people, my life was wrapped around for the whole year, and all of a sudden it was just done. And it's sort of like you have a moment where you're like, what do I do with myself right now? Like, I don't have any more shots. I don't have any more doctor's appointments. I don't have anyone to text about feeling a baby move or, you know, just the normal pregnancy stuff. So for me, right after the baby is a super important time for an intended parent to still check in, to still be involved. It really has nothing to do with the babies. I know that that may sound really weird, but it doesn't. It has to do with the intended parents and this beautiful relationship you've created over the last year. That's so important.
And we do get over it. We're all up here smiling. We all survived. We did it again. We got pregnancy amnesia and said, sign me up again. We won't stay crazy. Don't give up on us, okay?
Do you ladies keep in contact with the families at all? Yeah, can you tell us a little bit about your relationships now?
So my first journey, everybody has heard, love them, adore them. Would totally marry them if I could. My husband, who is actually here today because he is always by my side, would totally marry my IFs if he could. And incidentally, even though they are the furthest away, literally on another continent, they are the ones that we are the closest to. My last two journeys, both people actually live here in California. The second couple was a heterosexual couple. They live just 6 hours away in San Francisco, and we were very close the first year, and that has kind of dropped off now that their son is 3. I get to see pictures of him on Facebook and Instagram, but we really don't talk anymore. And like Carrie said, it's not that I love seeing the pictures of their son, but I really miss talking to them and hearing how they're doing as a family and seeing how, you know, the mom and dad are doing as mom and dad instead of just as intended parents. So in the same thing with my third journey, unfortunately, I don't keep in contact at all. And that's really tough after having a super close first journey. I encourage you, because I know myself, and I'm sure all of us, we are always thinking about how our actions will affect you. Every decision that we make carrying your child, we always think about how that will make you feel as a couple or as a person, as parents. And I urge you to please think about how your decisions will affect your surrogate. So in my third journey, I wish that the dad would think of the fact that my children didn't get to meet his son after I delivered him. And our oldest is 9, and so she does ask when she'll get to meet the baby because she's missing out on that closure. So I urge you to please think about us, even though you've gotten the end result and you have your baby and you have your family. And I will never look negatively on those journeys because those people are parents and they have a family, and that's really what surrogacy is about, was giving that to them and helping them achieve that. But we really love to stay in touch with all of you and watch your family grow and evolve just like we do our own. So
Thank you.
it's not always sunshine and roses.
For those of you that went on to do a second journey with maybe a new couple, how was that for you working with the brand new couple?
It's like night and day, I think. I wanted a couple that I wouldn't be as close to. So I went in thinking like, oh, this is easy, but like honestly, I love them just as much. So plan didn't work, but it's just different going from international to somebody that's 20 minutes away sometimes, depending on where you're at. It was hard, but it's like, I always describe it as having your second child. You just kind of find a way to love more people. So yeah, it was the same.
What is your favorite thing about surrogacy? Anyone of you?
Giving you your baby back.
The moment the baby is born.
That's a good one.
Yes.
I'm also a big fan. My oldest daughter will be turning 7 soon, so she's still a little itty bitty in the grand scheme of things. But I love the lesson that my being a surrogate gives to her. So many, like you said, my mom has babies for other people. I love that. There was a moment when we decided to match with our second family, and I I started talking with her about it, and I said, do you think this is something we should do again? Because we'd been through it once, and it was up to her. And she said, Mom, I think you should have 74 babies. But we shouldn't give them all to Mike and Trav because that's too many. So you should pick someone else. But that's up to you, whoever, whatever. And I was like, this is, at that point, someone who had just turned 6. A 6-year-old can't read or write her name, and because of what I've done, understands this huge compassion. That just might be my favorite part. And with that, I marched in Pride this year, because I'm a huge advocate anyway, but my first family was 2 dads. And when I got home, this 6-year-old said, Mom, let's talk about Pride the event versus Pride the emotion, because you went to Pride and I have Pride. And that came from surrogacy. I didn't teach her that any other way. So I love what my family absorbs because of this choice.
I think everybody comes to surrogacy for a different reason, and I came to surrogacy because when my time comes and my card's pulled, I want to have a legacy left for my children. And I think surrogacy gave me that opportunity to do something beyond myself. And since I've done surrogacy, like the twins inspired me to make career changes. So now I work for an IVF clinic. My passion is IVF. Like, I get text messages at night from patients or fellow surrogates. So like, Shelly, I don't know what I'm doing. So it's like my husband sees me in the bathroom FaceTiming, showing people my bum where you're supposed to do your injection. I'm like, no, it's right here. So it's my whole life now. People at the agency I work with, I'm friends with on Facebook. We follow each other on Instagram. So it's like, it's all intertwined. Like, I'm closer with some of my fellow surrogates and the people at the agency than I am to my own family, just because they're people that understand why I am the way I am and the reasons why I make the choices I make. So my favorite thing about surrogacy is that it gives you a family that you get to choose. And my army is big and my army is fierce.
Jessica, did you want to add to that? I'm not sure I like this question because I don't like talking negative, but what is your least favorite thing about surrogacy?
People who don't agree because they don't understand. So everything within surrogacy is great. There's always going to be bad. There's going to be the Dr. Oz stories. There's going to be the People magazine stories with surrogates who want to keep their baby or surrogates who failed drug tests. And there's always going to be bad, but that's not my surrogacy. That's not my world. The surrogacy part that I don't like is the people who fail to educate themselves to see how amazing it is. How many families are created because of something that's so big and so honest and so raw and so full. So I think that if everybody that didn't agree with surrogacy was here today, they would get it. So that's our mission. We're going to conquer the world next.
Yes. What advice do you have to give intended parents and surrogates when first looking into surrogacy and looking for a match?
I think super basic. Carrie said it best. Just go with your gut. You will know when you meet the right surrogate, and we know when we meet the right intended parents. You just kind of have that feeling and go with your gut and trust in the process and just really embrace the journey and love it and make it part of your story. Like, I don't know many 9-year-olds that know more about reproductive endocrinology than the average adult. So just make it your story and your journey and really embrace it and live it and just love the moments.
And do your research.
Don't wait. Don't wait. The moment you take the plunge and sign the first papers, the first thing you're going to say is, why did I wait so long? You heard it on the intended parent panel. Would anybody, be educated, be sure, but stop biting your nails and become a parent. You're not going to regret doing it.
Thank you, ladies. Does anybody have questions?
there's some agencies that provide a group support that offers like a monthly sort of support for surrogates. Did you find that useful? Did you think that you needed that? Or is that something that you didn't use? Or would you recommend?
I'll speak now. Okay, so pardon the tears. It just invoked a lot of things. So the couple that I excuse me, the couple that I did the traditional surrogacy for, 3 weeks before the baby was born, the mom passed away. And we were so close. And we were so close to getting, you know, what we aimed to do. And so for me, with the even though I wasn't with an agency, because I couldn't, the agency that I had been with before, they always had open arms. They were supportive of what we were doing. They just couldn't literally support us. So I was always welcome to the support groups, which I've always utilized, whether I was with them or not. And that did really help get me through the tough times, which is what hit right after, you know. The hormones go after you have a baby, and so tears will happen no matter what. You can't control them. And then I was dealing with the loss of a friend and just thinking about the baby without a mom, even though I know she'd grow up with a wonderful dad. And so those support groups really are helpful, because as much as your family and your friends can support you, and they will, this is a group of people who know what you're going through, most of the time literally. So they're very, very useful and appreciated. So
It's a great question. So I'm sitting up here with 4 women, right? I know this one before today. These are all my Suro sisters, and the pregnant ladies will cry here.
I'm not pregnant and I've got tears, so I mean.
This gal here, I have shared parenting and marriage issues with, and that's not just at a monthly conference call. Your Suro sisters are a tribe, and as she said, they're fierce. You get a baby, we get a sisterhood, and we wouldn't have that if you didn't have us. So thank you. Yeah.
Any other questions? Yes.
I know Shelley and Daniel have experience carrying a baby for international or foreign intended parents. Did you find it more difficult and challenging during the journey because like maybe the physical barrier or cultural language barrier?
No. Luckily, my international couple still spoke English, even though it wasn't perfect English. But besides the time difference, there's no barriers. Like if you're open and honest with your doctors, I Skyped my couple into every single doctor's appointment.
Yeah.
So my cell phone bill was like $1,000 a month, but I mean, it was fine.
I agree. I think that the communication it's in your hands, whether you're here in the same state or, you know, a continent away. My intended fathers, when we first started this journey, only one of them spoke good English. And the other one, we bonded over the word bambino, because that was the only thing that I could understand in Italian, and that was the only thing that I could pick up quick enough. But we used, you know, WhatsApp. It's a text messaging program, and just like she said, we would Skype in to doctor's appointments, and I would video the babies moving in my belly and send it over. And so your communication, distance doesn't matter. You can still absolutely have that close relationship regardless of how far apart you are.
Any other questions? Okay.
Thanks for everything that you guys have shared with us. My question is more towards first-time surrogate versus surrogate for the second or third time. Does that make the process easier, or is there any advantages going through the process together towards first-time?
I guess it depends on what you think is easier. Knowledgeable with, you know, second, third, or however many times you've done it, you definitely have a lot more knowledge, so you understand the process better. Easier, every single surrogacy you do, whether it's with, or when you had your own children, every birth is different. So it just depends on how you look at it.
I mean, I think obviously we were all first-time surrogates at one point, so there's something to be said for first-time surrogates. Our families still love us, so we didn't screw it up too bad. But you can learn together. You know, it's your first time as intended parents and our first time as surrogates, and everybody, you go through it together, and there's kind of that newness and figuring it out together, and there's something special about that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, ladies.
Thanks. That was an amazing session. Thanks, ladies. It was really good.